Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Paya. For those of you joining us this evening for just the talk, you're joining a group of about 30 young adult practitioners, mostly young adult, who are here for a young adult sesshin that we started yesterday. How long has it been? So they've been sitting for the full day today, and you're entering this space of stillness and silence with them. And I don't know if you can feel it in the room, but I certainly feel the presence that's generated there. And I'm grateful for the people who have been sitting and for all of you who are also joining us. So first, I want to let you know that Roshi Joan is doing well. For those who don't know, she just went through heart surgery yesterday? Oh man, yesterday morning, she went in for heart surgery and had her mitral valve repaired, and she's doing well now. The surgery went well, and she's in the ICU recovering. And I'm really glad. It was a kind of surgery that they call minimally invasive, and so you think, oh, well, then maybe it's not that big of a deal. But then Dinan told me they actually have to stop her heart for half an hour and put her on a heart-lung machine while they go in and replace or repair something. So not altogether without risk, as you can imagine. So we were all sitting with her yesterday as she went through that. And yeah, I think a lot of loving comments. We have a blog post where people can write to her, and we're all just so grateful. She pulled through, and we'll be all the stronger for it. We hope. We fear. And I just, of course, always gratitude for our teachers, for the ones who have created the space for us to practice, but especially today, as Roshi's recovering, I just feel such immense gratitude for her, for who she is as my teacher, but also very much as the magnet and the catalyzer of this place of Upaya, which started out as, she sometimes says, a dry bean field here with a stupa. It was like just the stupa and a couple houses in 1972 or something. She came in 1990 and started building the place slowly, and now we have over 100 trees and just this kind of oasis. And if you've taken any time to walk the grounds, the flowers are blooming, the red maple is just in foliage, and it's just breathtaking to be here. And many hands and eyes and resources went into, of course, the building of this place. She couldn't have done it by herself. And so I have gratitude for her for magnetizing that, and for everyone who's been involved, including our global Mahasangha, which has grown immensely in the last 5 years, to thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of people. And I just feel in awe. And at a moment when the possibility of loss becomes very real, we can start to feel even more appreciative. And that's what I want to talk about tonight. This sense of a feeling of closeness. And so the title, which was meant to be a little confusing, is Aare, opening to the unhindered mind. So you can read it aware, which also makes sense, but specifically I wanted to talk about this Japanese concept of Aare. Oh, and then in addition to, so part of this process, so on Sunday I took her and Dinan to the airport to see them off for the Monday surgery. And on Sunday, Frank Ostaseski gave a talk, the fourth of his 5 talks on the 5 remembrances, a class we're doing online with several hundred people. And the 4th remembrance is, all that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature to change. there is no way to escape being separated from them. So we're receiving this talk, and we're actually driving to the airport while he's closing. And then I, hugged them goodbye, and off they went. Maybe that would have been the last time. And so as we were there at the airport, as I was dropping them off, there was that feeling like, okay, this might be the last time I see you. But she wasn't gone yet, right? So there was a feeling of kind of loss for someone who's not gone, right? It's kind of hard to describe. But I think anybody could feel this with me. You're aware of the impermanence of the person, and that it might be the last time you see them. And so just to feel this with me, maybe close your eyes and think of someone or something, an animal, a pet, or a person that you love deeply, that you've seen maybe recently, maybe not so recently, and that you would be very, very sad if you didn't get to see them again. So imagining that moment, that last moment when you said goodbye, if you knew or if you felt in your heart, I really might not see this person again. What that brings up. I mean, it almost brings tears to my eyes, right? Wow, this could really be it. And then at the same time, it's probably likely that you will see them again. So then there's joy, there's a happiness, a gladness. You still are here. It's almost a relief. It's something that hasn't even happened yet. It's a strange kind of time travel we can do with ourselves, to imagine that someone is gone and yet they're still there. So we can feel the longing and yearning for their loss and the happiness that they're still there. And that sense, that feeling, for me at least in that moment, and since then, has just made me more present, I think. It just brings us a little bit more present to the moment. You can open your eyes now, but if you imagine that, maybe the person's in the room with you, and you can look over them, and you're still here. I'm so grateful. So, being an AI geek, I went on Claude AI and asked it about this feeling. Is there any word in any language that is something like this? And they told me that there was a word that could be kind of like this called saudade. Does anybody know that word, saudade? I might be saying it wrong. It's Portuguese. Anybody? Somebody say it? Sadaji? Sadaji? Thank you, Andrew. Sadaji. So this word is a yearning, a longing for something, usually that has been lost, from what I've read. And I asked a friend whose friend speaks Portuguese, and she said, it's both the sorrow for what you've lost and the happiness at the memory of them. So it's this combined feeling of sorrow and happiness that can exist for something that's actually gone. So all the more so, and then I said, well, what about there's not gone yet? And so it can still be Sadaji. It can still be that feeling of combined happiness and sorrow, the inseparability of them. In fact, the more sad you would be at their disappearance, the happier you are that they ever existed or that they still exist, right? And so that is, I went down a rabbit hole. There's a whole Sadaji music genre and beautiful poetry and things. And usually it's about longing for something that's gone. But I think that does touch on the feeling of that. And recently I was in Minnesota with my family, and I have a 3.5-year-old daughter. And I was also thinking of this, because Roshi was going through her process. And I was just thinking, well, I'm leaving I won't see her for 3 weeks. probably will see her again, but it might not, I might not. And she's there on her scooter in her little red helmet that's too big for her head because she's tiny, and she's scooting around, and it's just like, oh God, stay out of the street, please, like just be safe, please. And yeah, and she was with her grandma, and they're fine. But I was really feeling it then too, like, wow, this moment. And there are some hard times if you've ever had a 2 or 3 year old where it can be difficult. And but it wasn't, those moments when I could remember the Sadaji of it. Those moments were not difficult, they were precious. And, she's blissfully unaware of that fact. And I wonder, at what age do you suddenly realize the impermanence of life and that you could lose things? I mean, I think she's probably close, but I'm not going to tell her yet. You might never see me again. That would not go well. So anyway, I was appreciating that. And so this concept, of course, is related to a concept you may have heard of, mono no aare in Japanese, the slender sadness, or literally it could be the pathos of things. Mono no is of things, and aare is pathos, or it literally comes from the word grief or sorrow, but it's tied together with beauty. It's the inseparability of beauty and impermanence, right? And Roshi likes the translation, the slender sadness. And the typical example is the Japanese cherry blossoms in the spring, which we have some, cherry blossoms here too, and throughout Santa Fe, well, throughout the world, I guess. But for a brief week, they bloom, they're beautiful, they smell wonderful, and then they blow away and they're gone, right? And so, the typical scene is like a field of cherry blossoms that's just, at the end of their life, the wind blows and there's just a rain of blossoms, and it's just like a breathtaking sight. And if they were permanent plastic cherry blossoms that looked exactly the same but never fell, wouldn't be the same, right? So there's something about the fact that they die and the fact that those trees are naked part of the year, green part of the year, and full of cherry blossoms part of the year, that impermanence, that cycle, that brings up that beauty. And so aare is usually, it's kind of more conceptual, and I think it's a little bit like, at least for me, I can speak personally, my understanding of impermanence is conceptual. It's like, yeah, things end, things die, things change. It's just part of life. We need to realize it. But with Roshi's surgery and reflecting on closing in on my 40th cycle around the sun, tomorrow I turn 40, and thinking of, the necessary midlife crisis that I should have now. It's not conceptual, right? Impermanence, I mean, yes, it's conceptual, but if you really realize what it means, you can't help but feel something. And if it's death, if it's the end of what you love, you'd think like, oh, that's terrible and terrifying, my own death, the death of my loved ones. But it's so strange that built into that feeling is this feeling of beauty and appreciation, even more so, I think, with that knowing, that feeling of impermanence. And so I've appreciated this kind of reflection on this feeling, and noticed how sitting with this has imbued my life for at least these past couple weeks with a little bit of a different feeling tone. Because it's not just people we can feel Sadaji or aare. I was in the airport and just walking along, not late, not rushing. Many people know I tend to rush, but maybe you've noticed I'm rushing less these days. Not rushing, just walking in the airport, looking out at the planes and all of the people, hundreds of, it's amazing how many people, and they're all going places and they all have lives. Have you ever looked at a stranger and just like, you have a whole life and a mother and a father and, a whole family and people that love you. And for this one moment, we make eye contact and then you have a life and I have a life. And it's just like that happens thousands of times every day. And so I felt that saudade of that moment of the people and the place and the space. What's it going to look like in 100 years? That very airport in Minneapolis. Would there even be airports anymore? Would it be an overgrown jungle? Would humanity survive this poly-crisis? Probably not going to look anything like it is now, no matter what happens, right? And so just appreciating that, it helps me be present, I think, with everything, everything in life. And that's why I thought of this. I was thinking of opening like a doorway to the unhindered mind, a doorway to the undistracted mind. As we go into sesshin, as we deal with the constant distractions of life, maybe this feeling, this embodied sense of impermanence, aare, could help us, could help me. And so in sesshin, that's what we're trying to do, is to be undistracted, right? To try and allow our thought stream to settle by removing as much external stimulation as possible. So those in sesshin have put away their phones, put away the computers. They're not even reading or writing for the most part. So the stimulation that constantly bombards us in our modern world is not so much there. In fact, when we were sitting and hearing a phone buzz, it gave me a little, ooh, And I think it does that all the time, right? Every time I get a notification, I have an Apple Watch, so it's like, bzz. I think it's a little nerve-wracking, to be honest. I'm wondering, maybe I should turn it off altogether. But then the people that, anyway, I'm working on that. But yeah, notifications, external stimulation. And those of us who aren't in sesshin, I don't know if we realize until we're able to take a step back, and maybe that's why some of us at least meditate, to take a step back from that constant bombardment on the doors of our perception. The buzzing, the billboards, the screens, even in the airport, it's just constant music and noise and noise. And it's not just innocent noise. It's noise that's trying to sell you something. It's the result of a techno-capitalist regime that's built to make money by harvesting your attention. It's really matrixy, to be honest. And when you hear about it, reading this book, Nexus by Yuval Noah Harari, about information networks, and one of the things he talks about there, which you probably know, is the algorithms that are part of why Facebook and YouTube and TikTok, these short form videos, why are those companies so rich? Why are their algorithms so powerful? It's because they have one goal, is to maximize user engagement, right? At any cost. And when they created these things, nobody really knew what they would do. Maybe people really want to be engaged with what's really meaningful to them. They're going to just give me Dharma books, and they're going to give me quotes about uprightness and, right? No. Cat videos and, I don't even want to tell you what shows up on my feed. It's embarrassing. Because that's the stuff that catches you, right? It's like, I don't even want to be looking at that stuff. And yet that's what is kind of tapping into my amygdala, right? My most basal neuronal activity is what's engaging. And so outrage, when you're pissed off when you're morally outraged because some other person is doing something terrible, ooh, you're really engaged. You want to see more. It doesn't make you happy. And they found study after study that these forms of media are really unhappy making at the least, and at their most harmful, they're actually extremely destructive. And it can be argued that like the violence against the Rohingya in the 2010s happened in large part because of Facebook's algorithms of fomenting outrage amongst people. This is all in Harari's book, so I don't, of course, know this for myself, but just even the thought that like, wow, a mindless algorithm designed just to maximize user engagement suddenly creates war and chaos. And it's like, okay, what is it doing to my mind? So when I get stuck scrolling on something, maybe I don't get violent or something, but I certainly don't feel good. I mean, how many people really feel good after an hour on TikTok or short video? You don't have to raise your hand. Maybe there are people, I don't know. Please tell me if I'm like, I love that thing. It's just like, after a hard day at work, I don't want to do anything. I'm just gonna, I mean, this is where I feel my age. In the old days, we used to channel surf. You young people don't know about channel surfing, do you? No, you probably do. But you know, you just had a fixed number of channels and they just played stuff and you just had to, do they still have that now? Like my TV doesn't do that. It's all on demand. Everything's on demand, except they're spoon feeding it to you, right? Okay. I feel some passion about this because, you know, I see my daughter already drawn to the screen, and I've talked about this, how it's just like, she sees me on my screen, she wants the screen. And the screen is designed to draw her in and suck up her attention, and it's terrifying. And young people, I'm like, you know, we didn't have smartphones until I had already graduated college, but young people nowadays are getting screens younger and younger, and now it's like, you're basically born with it. What does that do to the mind when we don't even understand how the algorithms are affecting us and what they're, you know, we're only just learning how damaging it can be. So I'm so grateful for you young people who are here doing the opposite. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So coming back to this non-distraction, if we have that feeling too of wanting to take space and be undistracted, at least at times. Of course, sesshin is wonderful, meditation practice, but how in our life, which is so busy, all of us have busy lives and the demands of our lives are constantly calling for us to do this and that. And I just have this feeling that maybe this kind of sitting with impermanence, that the practice of really recalling the preciousness of human life and the inevitability of death, if that could become more the fabric of my life, that I could leave a little bit earlier and not rush. I could be present with that person who's talking to me. I could not have my phone at the dinner table. I mean, it's like you see people who are out at dinner and they're both looking at their phones. And it's just like, what are you doing? And then I find myself doing that. It's like, well, I have a good reason. You know, I'm checking something. I need to check this. You need to check that too? Okay, we'll both check. Oh no, we're those people. You know? And so it's like, it's fine. It's not to judge ourselves. And like, again, the technology is created to be addictive and is designed that way. And so we're almost bound to be inundated by this kind of thing. And so we have to be very strong in our intention and in our communal intention to help each other. What do we want to do? And Doshin put a basket out for, what is it called? The phone sanctuary. The phone sanctuary. Well, keep your phone safe and off, away from, you know, your conditioning. Thank you. And so how can we bring these practices into our life? And so it's a little bit of a paradox though, because I'm kind of asking to arouse a feeling of attachment, right? To come into contact with that part of you that loves someone or something so much that you would hate to lose them. Isn't that what we're trying to be free of in Buddhism? To be free of attachment? And you'd be right, that there is a way of looking at especially the early Buddhist text that really looks like that. And there's a passage in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta about the final days of the Buddha's life. And it's really kind of interesting because there's this weird passage which they say is put in later where the Buddha kind of hints to Ananda, Ananda, you could ask me to live longer if you want. And Ananda's just like, that's interesting. Ananda, you really could. You could ask me to live forever if you want. I could live forever. He actually says this. And Ananda's like, interesting. And he never asks him. And then later Ananda's like, no, don't die. And he's like, too late. And it's like, where did that come from? So there's some interesting stuff there. But that's actually the part that I wanted to talk about. Not what the Buddha said, but so Venerable Ananda, when he knew that the Buddha was dying, went into the stupa, into the vihara, into the monastery, leaned against the doorpost and wept and thought to himself, I'm still but a learner and still have to strive for my own practice. Alas, my master, who was so compassionate towards me, is about to pass away. The Buddha heard about that he was upset, and he said to the other monks, bring Ananda here, bring Ananda here. And he said to him, enough, Ananda, do not grieve, do not lament. Have I not taught from the very beginning that with all that is dear and beloved, there must be change, separation, and severance? Of that which is born, come into being, compounded, and subject to decay, how can one say, may it not come to dissolution? There can be no such state of things. So the Buddha is kind of telling him, get off it. Like, if you really understood impermanence, you wouldn't be such a crybaby. Sounds like what he's saying. And then later, after the Buddha passed away, some monks, not yet freed from the attachments, lifted up their arms and wept, and some, flinging themselves on the ground, rolled from side to side and wept, lamenting, too soon has the Blessed One come to parinibbana. Too soon has the Happy One come to his final end. Too soon has the eye of the world vanished from sight. But the monks who were freed from attachments, the arhats, mindful and clearly comprehending, reflected in this way, impermanent are all compounded things. How could this be otherwise? And they were chill. That wasn't in there. How does that strike you? I mean, a little odd, isn't it? It's like, is that why we're practicing? So that when our most cherished loved one dies, we can be like, everything's impermanent. I don't think so, right? And Zen has a little bit of a different take on things, and the Mahayana tradition in general. And I don't want to say, oh, the early suttas are wrong. I don't think they're wrong. I think they're just a different way of looking at something. And actually, I'd like to think, and this is completely made up, that those arhats were actually feeling even more than we can imagine. They were feeling so much inside. The grief and loss, because it says even the Buddha experienced great pains when he was having his sickness, great pains, but was mindful and clearly comprehending. So it's not like you don't feel pain, right? So they're feeling perhaps a deep inside pain. They're feeling that saudade, that joy of having known the Buddha at all. They're feeling the spaciousness and the compassion perhaps for their fellow monks who are just completely distraught. Maybe they're feeling all of this and they feel like the appropriate response in this moment is to be cool and calm and just like, this is how it is, my friends. I'd like to think that they were like that, and maybe a solitary tear was coming down. But we don't know. However, in Zen, we have a different kind of story. From the Book of Equanimity, in case 58, Gary Shishin-Wick tells a story about a monk who was deeply disturbed and disillusioned with Zen when he heard his master scream in pain and fear as he was being murdered by thieves. So he must have read the Mahaparinibbana Sutta and thought, like, all right, you don't scream in pain if you're being murdered, even if you're being murdered by thieves. He thought that Zen was a fraud if it did not teach you to stay calm in the face of death. He expressed his concern to another teacher later, who opened the young monk's eyes. The other teacher said, "Fool! Zen..." Fool! Zen is not about killing all feelings and becoming anesthetized or numb to pain and fear. Zen is about being free to scream loudly and fully when it is time to scream. When it is time to scream, we scream. When it is time to laugh, we laugh. When it is time to cry, we cry. When it's cold, you're cold. When you're reviled, be reviled. And that, I think, for those of you who are Zen practitioners, are like, yeah, that's what we say. When you're hungry, eat. When you're tired, sleep. And when you are in love, feel love. And when your loved one dies, feel sad. That's the appropriate response. Might be. It's one appropriate response. And so I had to look this up. It was like, did this really happen? And apparently, yes, in 887, Yento Chunhua, he had a temple, it was raided by bandits, and he was stabbed to death. And his screams could be heard for miles, they said. And there was a whole debate about whether he was really enlightened because he screamed. And of course, you can never know. But there were people who said, of course he was enlightened. And in the moment of his death, he was fully alive and fully aware. And that was the appropriate response. So I do think that Buddhism is about giving up attachment to things. But I don't think that word means what we normally think of as attachment. I think we can love things. We can long for lost things, and it's not necessarily attachment. Somehow attachment is tied up with an inappropriate self-identification, some kind of like a delusive I-making. And that's a whole nother talk, and I don't even know where this is coming from, but it's a feeling that attachment is something to be free of. Tanha, grasping, clinging. But it's a different sort of thing. When our eyes are open and we're wide awake to what's arising for us, when we're allowing everything in, then what is arising, if what is arising is deep sorrow, then to allow that to flow through could not be wrong. To suppress something and to try to pretend that, oh, we know impermanence, therefore I shouldn't feel anything, that definitely doesn't feel right. So wholehearted engagement. Roshi often talks about wholeheartedness and what that means and how we enter into each moment with our whole self. And for me, as I'm entering my middle life, I hope that means less conceptual knowing, conceptual ideation, and more heartfelt knowing, more feeling into things, being present with what's arising, both for myself and the people I'm with. Recognizing that even in the midst of annoyance, that person who's annoying is someone I probably love and they might be gone. And can I see through that to that connection, which helps me be present. And all of these things, I hope, are wake-up bells, as kind of all of our practices in Zen are. Wake-up bells to remind us of our true intention, to be present with what's arising, to be present and awake to who we are. Do we have a wake-up bell? Position? No, too bad. There's a position called what is it called? Shinrei. The Shinrei, the wake-up bell. This is a person who wakes up earlier than everyone, goes out under the pre-dawn stars, walks around ringing a bell. And when I did that, it's kind of like, a lowly position, because like, who wants to wake up earlier, right? And yet, it's also kind of the highest position, the wake-up bell, similar to the Han outside, calling us to Zazen. It's kind of a metaphor for our vow to awaken with all beings, to save all sentient beings. And we should have a Shinrei. But we have a Fukudo. And the Fukudo is the person who hits that Han. And the Han is the wooden board. We have one out here. And we have one in front of the Zendo. And in the Zendo, you can see that there are 4 Chinese characters on it. Sino-Chinese or Japanese characters on it. Do you guys know what that means? What's on there? You can't say. What does the Han say? Do you know, Turner?
Jeff told me the other day.
Jeff, what does the Han say?
Anshin told me it was life, death, supreme importance.
Good. Good, Anshin. Shoji ji dai. Life, death. Matter, great. The great matter of life and death. And it's short for a longer verse that we chant every night, or a version of it. And I was curious to look at the original text, which some say it was attributed to Dogen, but I think it might come from somewhere else. But they're either just the 4 characters or the whole 4 times 4, the 16 characters are on every, and most Zen centers, like throughout the world, they have a wooden board that has this written. The great matter of life and death. Impermanence is swift. Time is precious. Time waits for no one. That's kind of like a literal translation. And so we say every evening, let me respectfully remind you, life and death are of supreme importance. Time passes swiftly, and opportunity is lost. Let us awaken, take heed. Do not squander your life. If we can remember this, if we can hold it in our hearts and bodies, that sentiment, maybe with the help of Sadaji and aare, then maybe we have a better chance of being present, of walking that awakened way with each other, causing less harm, doing more good, following our vows. And so I'd like to close with Dogen from his Fukan Zazengi, which is his famous writing on recommending Zazen for all people. Having received a human life, do not waste the passing moments. Already upholding the Buddha way, why indulge in the sparks from a flint? After all, form is like a dewdrop on the grass. Life is like a flash of lightning, transient and illusory, gone in a moment. Honored practitioners of the way, do not grope for the elephant or doubt the true dragon. Endeavor on the immediate and straightforward way. Revere the mind that goes beyond study with effortless effort and surpasses all doing. Experience the enlightenment of the Buddhas and correctly inherit the samadhi of the ancestors. Practice thusness continually, and you will be thus. The treasury will open of itself for you to use as you wish. And as my teacher says, let's do this. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. As we're in Sesshin, we won't be having a public meal tonight, so I'll ask actually the residents and guests who are here for Sesshin to depart first, if the rest of you would just stay a moment and allow them to exit quietly, because we're going to Oryoki dinner. And just to say that next week, Sensei Ryotan, Cynthia Kier, will be giving a talk on, do we know yet? Great, on a surprise. Yeah, so please come for that next week, and then we will have dinner next Wednesday, so join us for that. Thank you for your presence. Oh, and there will be a begging bowl out there. If you feel called and it would serve you, please offer, Donna. Thank you.